Join us by the fireside for our evening tales of true life's strange experiences with things that lie beyond the veil of the known and into the misty depths of the mysterious and unknown. The Hooded Man. When I was about 14, I was staying at my friend's house, and there were bunk beds in the room, and I stayed on the top one. We just went to sleep like normal, but then I had a dream, and in my dream, I saw a hooded man, and he was standing in the doorway. He just walked in, and he stood there staring at both of us as we lay in bed. When he looked at me, I felt suddenly cold as ice, and I felt sick in my stomach. There was this overwhelming sense of dread that ran right through me. I didn't want to draw attention to myself by calling for help, so I stayed quiet, just dead quiet. This hooded man started to come closer, and then, to my horror, he leaned down towards my friend in the bottom bunk bed. I was so scared for my friend, but relieved that its attention was not on me. I just felt really ashamed for being so cowardly, but I didn't know what else to do. I just did not have the courage to speak or do anything. Then, suddenly, there was this horrible, indescribable noise that came from this hooded figure. It was like a low, very deep rumbling, and it grew louder and louder, and it hurt my ears. There was something so horrible and discordant about it. I hoped that it would wake up my friend's parents, but at the same time, I felt that we were trapped and we were just alone in there, like we were in some kind of bubble, and we couldn't get out and nobody could come in. And then this man, he continued this weird kind of noise, that was like a scream and a rumble. And then suddenly, even worse, there was this swarm of insects that started to fly out of the hooded area of his clothing. They were flying around the room. I don't know what kind of insect they were, but they were just flying and buzzing around the room, and they were buzzing around my face too. But I was so afraid to move and swat them away that I just lay there. These bugs, they just kept flying out of the hood, and they soon just filled the whole room with them. I don't know what happened next. It was like I passed out or something. The horror of it was just too much for me to bear. The next day, I was talking to my friend about how we slept, and my friend's dad asked if we had a good sleep. I replied that I had a nightmare, and it really scared me. Then my friend spoke up, and he said that he had a nightmare as well. And this is where it gets even scarier and weirder. My friend said that he dreamt that he had like thousands of bugs crawling all over him. I then explained my nightmare, and it just freaked us both out. Luckily, they moved house not long after because there was no way in hell that I was ever going to go back there and definitely never, ever sleep there again. Well, that is a truly terrifying dream. My goodness. That's like the kind of thing that you never forget. And, well, I guess fortunately it was a dream and not something that, that you were awake and happening to you. But, sometimes these dreams, I think, from what I understand, could mean that there is definitely some kind of presence there, and it's actually kind of, it's like you see it in your dream, you experience it there. So glad you made it out of there and that they sold the house, that's for sure. The camping trip. About a year ago, I went on a camping trip with my family, and we went to the same park that we usually go to every year. We also get to the same site whenever we can, and it's close to the bathroom and the showers. And this year, we booked a bit late, so we were actually placed a little bit ways out in the back of the park, and it's pretty secluded area around there, and it's surrounded by woods. It was a nice change, but a bit of a hassle because, there's lots of walking, to go fishing and to go to the bathroom, etc. The first night that we were there, my nephew woke up in the middle of the night and he woke up my sister and he told her there was someone outside the tent. She said that something then leaned up on the tent. He got really scared and he pushed back. She went outside and there was nothing to be seen. We kind of just dismissed it as, just some kind of, I don't know, coincidence, maybe an animal or something. Even though my sister didn't think that was it. The second night, we had a few friends over. So these people, they brought their dog along, and he's a really well behaved dog. And he's really good around people and animals. So we were all sitting around the fire, and suddenly the dog started barking like crazy. It was like she was going into some kind of panic. She was tied to the picnic table, kind of a little bit away from the fire and the people. And this was a really rare occurrence. So the owner got up to see what was going on. When he took the leash off the table, she went crazy and she pulled him towards the forest. She actually pulled him a good 10 feet, and he obviously wasn't expecting her to do that, and she was pretty strong. She's never acted this way before, apparently. So I grabbed the flashlight and I checked out the forest in the direction where she was pulling. I couldn't see anything, there was just nothing. She's seen squirrels, raccoons, cats, etc., and she just doesn't react this way. She's usually really calm around animals. Everybody then noticed how odd this was, and but they just kind of dismissed it, as maybe there was just some unknown animal in there or something. It did kind of start a conversation about the thing outside the tent from the previous night, though, so we were just kind of having fun with that. The third and final night we were there, we saw that there was a storm coming. The sky was lighting up and the thunder got really loud. The wind was crazy. Obviously, this was unrelated to the eerie events, but relevant to the story. We spent a good hour setting up tarps, just trying to cover things up and covering the chairs and, tables, everything. Everyone just then crawled into their tents for the night, knowing that the storm was going to hit any second. I was the last to get in because I had to go pee. I was at the edge of the site, facing the forest and peeing in the wind. The storm and the forest was spooky, really kind of spooky all of a sudden. But the thing that happened next will forever stay in my memory. Suddenly, from the forest, I heard the sound of a little girl singing. It wasn't like a modern, pop song or anything, but it was like a song with a sort of nursery rhyme kind of tempo to it, kind of old fashioned. I couldn't make out any words, but I was certain I was hearing the voice of a small girl. There were no other voices, and there were no people around except for us. And then the second that I finished, I turned towards the tent, and a loud bang of thunder sounded, and I jumped into my tent just as it started to rain. My heart was pounding. I was terrified. In the morning, I told my family. I feel like really no one believed me. But what happened just really terrified me. There was something about hearing this little girl in the woods that made my skin crawl. And I will never forget that because it was literally impossible for there to be a little girl in the woods, just in the middle of nowhere, just singing like that. None of it made sense. It might be worthwhile checking out, finding out if you can find some of the history of that place, that area, see if anything actually happened there, if anyone died there, a child perhaps going missing or anything like that. That's just kind of fascinating. If I have an experience somewhere, I always like to sort of check out, some of the history and see if something happened there, some kind of traumatic thing, event or a death or something like that. Very interesting story indeed. It's kind of subtle in a way, but it just kind of makes your skin crawl too. The young driver. This experience happened about 14 years ago, and I was driving to Denver through Texas, and I had loaded up most of my possessions in my car. At around probably about 1 a.m., somewhere just north of Amarillo, my car started to overheat, and I pulled into the only gas station remotely close. This gas station was closed, but I thought I would just wait there for a while and decide what to do, and just sort of stay there down the road somewhere. Apart from this gas station, there was really just nothing around. As far as I could tell, I couldn't see anything much. There were no cars on the highway. It was really just, the dead of night. And it was so dark without lights, and they were all turned off. And it was also really kind of almost strangely quiet. After a while, the headlights of a car appeared. And as it came by, it started to slow down and it pulled into the gas station. The driver was a blonde haired young guy. He rolled down his window and he didn't look directly at me, but he asked if I needed help or even a ride. Right away, as he said that, and as he sort of drove up and he spoke, I had this really kind of creepy feeling like something was wrong. Um, Also, this, I guess, being alone there, the solitude and the weird silence and everything just made it seem even worse. So, I tried to be polite and I just explained that my car had a problem, but, it was something that I'd figure out and I'd be fine. I was just going to hang out there for a while. And then he said, "Okay, sounds good. Take it easy." And he drove off without making any eye contact. My car was still really hot, so I just kind of decided to wait a little bit longer, and let it cool down for a bit. Then, after a while, this guy came back and he asked me again. I gave a little more detail about my plan because I didn't want him thinking I was trying to mess with the gas station. I told him I was just buying some time, just waiting for it to cool down, and then I'd be on my way. Again, as he spoke, he didn't make any eye contact, and then he just drove away again, just like before. And then probably about 20, maybe 30 minutes passed, and I decided I was going to, see if I could move on. And all of a sudden, he comes back. This time, he asked me again if I needed help. But after I said thanks, but no thanks, I noticed he was getting kind of agitated and nervous. Also, at this point, he turned towards me, and for the first time, I could see his eyes. This guy had no irises or pupils. His eyes were both solid white. Also, I had this sense of dread and terror that I can't say I have ever felt in my whole life, and I can't even begin to describe it. At the same time, he turned to me, too. He was in the middle of telling me I deserved this for driving a Japanese car, and that I was some kind of a-hole for not letting him help me. At this point, I got in the car and I just tore out of there. He followed me for a bit out of the station, but then he turned around after about a mile. And I was just terrified, and I just drove home without stopping. And fortunately, my car made it. Wow, what an experience. How terrifying. I can't help wonder what would have happened to you if you had accepted his help. Can you imagine that? Oh my God, that is just, you just kind of wonder, has anybody been in that same situation, in that same spot, and he showed up and they accepted his help? What happened to them, I wonder? I can't even bear to think about it.